these dumps, if you will, I've called them drive-by shootings, are specifically contained to paper. They have very little, if anything, to do whatsoever with physical demand. And quite frankly, on days when the price goes down, our volume goes way up. Nobody is selling in this industry. Nobody.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. And it is time for another episode of Andy Schectman's Physical Silver and Gold Market Update, which I think is important. Andy, we were actually discussing it with Dave Kranzler during his episode this week because, you know, it's easy to look on the COMEX and see what their price is, but I thought it was really interesting last week when you mentioned how you had 231 orders, 4 were sells, and yet we saw the COMEX price get hammered. So I appreciate you joining me every week. And how are you doing today?
I appreciate being here every week, Chris. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm well. I hope you are too.
Well, I appreciate that. Real quick before we get started, today's episode is sponsored by Dolly Varden Silver. So if you are of the mindset that silver is going to have a big move and are looking for leverage on that, again, run by Sean Kunkin, who you've seen on the show and will be back again soon. And one of the companies I'm following will be a link to Sean at the end. And again, thanks to Dolly Varden Silver for bringing us this update today. And Andy, I guess I'm curious, we saw some wild theatrics on the COMEX this week. Sunday night on the open, silver gets pounded. Kind of unusual to see how it rallied back so quickly on Monday. And then Tuesday, obviously a big day. We're recording on Wednesday, so who knows what the rest of the week will hold. But I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that. And again, if you could give us an update on these days where we saw the price down, what's happening in the physical market?
Yeah, sure, Chris. I mean, look, the movement that we see down in thinly trading, often in the middle of the night, sometimes at 2:30 in the morning, you'll see that. The AM and PM fix are notorious for price smashes that set the tone or the stage for the New York trading session. But I would say to you that these dumps, if you will, I've called them drive-by shootings, are specifically contained to paper. They have very little, if anything, to do whatsoever with physical demand. And quite frankly, on days when the price goes down, our volume goes way up. Nobody is selling in this industry. Nobody. And so, in fact, I was even told recently that the U.S. Mint is not selling or out of product. And so, you know, the demand for physical product is somewhat detached from the paper price. And I think that in general, it reeks of desperation. And I think it is bears little, if any, correlation to what's happening on the physical side. So, you know, all of this talk about Bitcoin being the new gold and silver, and Wall Street embracing Bitcoin, and that's why we have a sell-off, or the price goes up because supposedly we're gonna get some more stimulus, and it takes stimulus to keep the economy going. All of this stuff makes me chuckle. I mean, it's all, you know, news of the moment, and I think the reactionary, knee-jerk type of movements that we see based upon so-called news is, I think, foolish. I think the bottom line is simply this, that the supply-demand fundamentals for silver are extraordinary. You know, we're talking north of a 300 million ounce deficit next year. We have industry-wide mining of about 800 million ounces. And now you talk about you know, the solar panel industry and the drive for more electric powered vehicles on the road. These two industries alone should be able to take as much as 50% of the annual supply. We are heading into a period of time where I think silver never will be more important, and will become more and more important. And in an environment where what's coming out of the ground is 8-to-1. According to Keith Neumeyer, and it's priced right now at 80-to-1. I mean, it's extraordinary to see the potential value there that is too often overlooked by the noise. And the noise is just that, it's noise. I think people need to take a step back, tune out the noise. Nothing has changed. And in fact, people should be happy that things are on sale. It's a subsidy, if you will. But all you need to do is listen to your show that you had last night. I forgot the gentleman's name. He's Dutch. Yes, that's it. And all you have to see is how through what he calls shadow contracts, the enormous number of contracts that are being pulled off the exchange that are not really broadcast. It's invisible. No one is noticing it because they're next day delivery or immediate delivery, so they don't have the same type of footprint that we normally would associate with the commitment of traders report. You have to be a forensic type of accountant, like he was doing, a forensic analogy, to show that big money is pulling massive amounts of gold and silver off the exchange. Last time that you and I were on, Chris, you asked me the question, well, what's the difference? Because it's not leaving the building. And I thought he did an amazing job of explaining that, in that when these players, these others, these family offices, these sovereign wealth funds are pulling the metal off the exchange, the metal is tied to a warrant, which according to the CME rules cannot be force majeured. So that metal belongs to them and acting almost as if it's a storage facility, a Brinks storage facility. Many of these COMEX depositories are Brinks, but these are warranted bars of metal that belong to the people. They cannot be taken. They cannot be force majeured. So the bottom line is simply this. You could argue, if we go all the way back to 2017, Chris, and we see all the efforts by the central banks to repatriate their metal, and now we see the wealthiest people in the world, and you got to wonder, do the wealthiest people in the world have ties to the people pulling the strings? Are they given the gift of inside information, ahead of the curve? Are they acting on that information? Why the hell are they going to such great lengths to secretly and viciously pull gold and silver off the exchange, and doing it in a fashion that allows the game to continue before they get crowded out of their own aspirations? So look, the bottom line is simply this, Chris. I have said for a very long time that price is the greatest tool of misdirection. It is the no-look pass, because it is all you need to do to swing the masses. And you can just see it. Bitcoin goes up, the stock market goes up, and metals go down, and people jump off the gold and silver bandwagon just like that. They ignore fundamentals, and the insiders laugh all the way to the bank by scooping up metal at subsidized prices when no one else is looking, in a very clandestine manner. So the bottom line is simply this. Nothing has changed. This is a pullback, an orchestrated pullback within a secular bull market. And it is enabling the big money to not only accumulate insane amounts of metal, but also quietly pull it off the exchanges. And I think it's one of these deals where you cannot look at price, look at what they are doing, not the price that they are affecting. So anyway, sorry for such a long-winded answer, Chris. I know I have a bad habit of doing that when you and I talk, and that's one of the reasons I like talking to you so much. It's almost, as you put, it's therapy for me to get this off my chest. But the bottom line, Chris, is that the demand physically has little, if anything, to do with the price movements, and people view it as the height of disingenuine price movement. They understand that it's detached from reality, and are looking at it, at least on this side of the table, as an opportunity to acquire metal cheap.
Yeah, well, that sounds about what I've been seeing too. You mentioned a few interesting things in there. Now, I guess I'm technically interviewing you, but would you like to know my thoughts about Bitcoin as the new gold?
I would love to know, please.
I just think and find it interesting sometimes the way that media works, especially I really think of myself as media. I guess I am now. And
you are.
But especially I've seen these videos of, what do they call it? Predictive programming, where, they'll show, there was one where you see a broadcaster saying, how about a Christmas present or 10 this year? And then they showed basically every channel in the country was reading that same line. So you get a lot of things that are pounded in a consistent way. And I heard that the other day, Bitcoin, the new gold. And I thought that was interesting, where it's like all of a sudden a couple months ago, nobody wanted to touch a Bitcoin. Now the price has gone up. It's the new gold. I don't think that Bitcoin people feel that way, or I don't know, maybe they do. I don't think gold people feel that way. I don't think a lot of people feel that way. Yet you see how a coordinated Wall Street media, picks a certain message and just hammers it. And people are like, oh, well, I've heard that enough. It must be the case. And then look at how, you have the Fed. What do? Guide expectations. Well, I mean, these are all like very gray areas, especially, with for example, earnings. Is it 50 cents a share a lot? Well, if the expectation was a quarter, yeah. If the expectation was 75 cents, then no. So again, the way you present information, especially in today's culture where people aren't always digging deeply into things, and then you pound it and everyone's like, oh yeah, gold's a new Bitcoin. Since when? And it's just, that's one of the things that really, I don't know if I'm getting this across clearly, but it was something I thought about back when I was on the trading floor, and just noticing, well, if everyone says the Fed's going to cut a quarter point and it's relative to that, it kind of makes you think maybe I should be careful about what I'm thinking about what everybody supposedly says.
Well, I'd like to answer that two ways. First of all, in fairness and disclosure to all you listening out there, I've known Chris now for several years. And one of the first few times I spoke with him, he told me he understood and himself had invested in Bitcoin. So Chris is not someone who is adverse to Bitcoin. I'm sorry if I'm putting words into your mouth, but I know that you've understood it and owned some for a long time. And so I think that your comments are very significant to me. I have found, Chris, that one of the most disconcerting things that we've seen over the entire year has been the way that people are malleable, like a piece of Play-Doh, that if you just simply say it enough, it becomes true, like you're talking about. And I noticed the other day, I was watching something, and I was watching it on Fox, and like you're saying, there was a video clip, and some narrative behind it. And somehow, watching it later on in the evening on the local news, which is, a CBS affiliate, which is anything but right-leaning, had the exact same clip and the exact same narrative. So I think that when you realize that all of the media, the newspapers, the radio stations, the television stations, even those that are supposedly more unbiased or more right-leaning, when you look at who owns them, they're all owned by less than a half a dozen companies. That information that is filtered to the public. In other words, there are so many people that I encounter every day, Chris, that are very well read.
Quick question there. Those half a dozen so companies that own it, I'm sure it'd be a great conflict of interest if they had any close-knit relationship with the banks or government. So I'm sure that's not the case, right?
Oh, never. Of course not. Absolutely. No, absolutely. And there's a vaccine. So all of the things that you and I are talking about should be rendered moot. The point of it is that I see lots of people every day more so in my personal life, that are very well read, just arguably reading and listening to the wrong things and to the wrong people. And it takes a great amount of courage to do what you're doing. And people have sent me letters saying, God bless you, I pray for your safety. Evidently what we are talking about, people think is courageous in the respect that we're standing up to the popular conventional wisdom or popular narrative. But look, I just think that I think we are heading into an environment where discerning truth is becoming harder and harder and harder. And not only that, even when you can show somebody, whether it be mathematically or logically or economically, what have you, truth, they have been inundated so vehemently with a barrage of a particular narrative that it's so hard to convince them otherwise. A prime example is the election fraud. You know, you go to bed one evening and Trump is winning in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, and much like the precious metals market, which very often, in fact, I showed a chart in much of my public speaking, Chris, guy that you should have on your show if you're able to track him down. His name is Dimitri Speck. And Dimitri is an amazing analyst. And he has shown quite articulately through a chart. He would show a chart, and I can send it to you. Maybe you can even put it up on this conversation. And that chart is a period of time over 10 years, and it encapsulates every single day of trading for 10 years. And it's on one chart. And what it shows is a beat down, a waterfall decline at the AM and the PM fix, which for those of you who don't know, the AM fix is usually, I think, about around 2:30 in the morning Eastern. The PM fix is somewhere, I don't know, 9:30, 8:30, 9:30 Eastern time. But what he shows is, and by the way, when we talk AM, PM fix, we're talking London, by the way, not the United States. Anyways, but it sets the stage for New York trading. And what we see, what that chart showed us was a waterfall decline at the AM and the PM fix. This is not how markets work, period. He shows every day worth of 10 years worth of trading in one chart. And it basically shows that if you were to sell at the AM PM fix and buy back later in the day, almost every single time you'd win, period. Well, markets don't work that way. And nor do you see these types of smash downs or anomalies rather in statistics in those types of ballot countings. So you could argue that it's fraudulent, but no matter how articulate and how much proof and how much evidence that you show people, they refuse to listen to it if they are on the other side of the aisle. And I think that's really kind of what it all boils down to, is that there is a lot more going on here under the surface in terms of misinformation, in terms of divisiveness. There are a lot of problems that I think this country faces right now. And I think large in part is the information that we're getting is completely biased, and people are being so inundated with it everywhere they turn that it's becoming conventional wisdom. And so, yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities out there to be a contrarian right now. And I think it's never been more important to hold true to your convictions if you are a contrarian. And I think the logic behind it is incredibly sound. And going back to the price, what we saw is counterintuitive to what should be happening, but it's also old hat in this industry. But look, silver's almost doubled this year. Gold is up, I don't know, 50, 60% this year, whatever the number is, 40, 50, whatever. The point is that the markets are moving higher, but you have to have strong fingertips and hold on to your convictions, because everyone around you will be thinking differently, from the media to your friends to your associates. And it's a lonely existence having the feelings that we do, Chris. But I will tell you, never in my life have I been more convicted to the importance of what we're saying and doing and how we're trying to help people. And I say that to you with 100% sincerity. Yes, it's my business. Yes, I want to sell precious metals. But I will also tell you that, as I've often said publicly, I've been buying every 2 weeks for 30 years as a promise to my father when we started this company in 1989. I have never missed a 2-week period. And I think it's important once in a while to remind people that what we're talking about here is not getting rich. People get too emotional when the price falls. You should be happy that you're able to buy more insurance on sale. Do not be so emotional as it pertains to what is happening. That is exactly what they are hoping. They, being the people pulling the strings, are hoping to shake you and your emotions from the tree. You must be more logical here, more pragmatic, and not get so shooken from these price swings, which they know is very effective. But as you can see from your guest last night, the insiders are misdirecting through price, using that price and that volatility to act upon inside information and pull the stuff off the exchange at the most insane numbers that the COMEX has ever seen. It is not acting like a futures market. It is acting like a cash and carry market when you see the tremendous number of those shadow contracts that he talks about. So anyways, Chris, once again, long-winded, but thank you for giving me the platform to talk this way. I think that we are entering a pivotal time in American history, and I think people need to think for themselves more than anything else and trust your gut. Most of us go through life and say, damn it, I knew I should have done that. Why didn't I do that? I knew it, whether it be about relationships or business decisions or friendships or anything, investments. I think you need to trust your gut. You need to have strong fingertips, and you need to hang on, and you need to listen to guys like you out there who are putting on the best people in the world. I'm not talking myself. I'm talking every one of your guests. I listen to every one of your shows, and I learn a lot, and I hope everyone else out there is too, because these are times where it's make or break. And so don't look at the price. Look at the logic. Look at the mathematics. Look at the economics, and trust your gut. That's the best way to come out of this as unscathed as possible. Because remember one thing, my dear mentor and someone I miss so much, Richard Russell, used to say, in a bear market, he who loses least wins. I will argue that we will see a bear market in several things in this country, because I don't remember ever seeing a time where you could argue that stocks, bonds, and real estate were all in a bubble. And that is all directly related to interest rates and those super low interest rates. And when those interest rates rise, you're looking at a spiritual experience across the board. And so now is the time to look at these price pullbacks, not in a depressed light or in a sad light or an aggravated light, even though it does test our patience once in a while. Look at it as a subsidy and an opportunity to reposition yourself outside the dollar. One last thing, and I'll shut up and listen to you, Chris, is that, people like to think they're diversified, but a diversified portfolio is a sampling of several asset classes. Most don't move in harmony. It's very unusual to see three asset classes moving in harmony together: stocks, bonds, and real estate. And that is what is so unusual. Normally, bonds and stocks move inverse of each other. And when you have interest rates that have been manipulated to 5,000-year lows, it creates many inequities and anomalies. And when this rectifies itself, when Mother Nature has her way and things go back to symmetry, you will see I believe, a very spiritual experience for a lot of people who firmly believe the only road to retirement is paved with stock certificates and mutual funds. I think what you are doing and what we are trying to do together here, by helping people, by offering them precious metals, by talking to them about the logic of it, by showing them why conventional wisdom isn't always the best approach, one day will be very well respected and revered by a lot more people than just the 0.5% in this country who own precious metals. And when we see a revision to the 30-year mean of about 2.5%, as lowly as that is, that's a five-fold increase in demand in this industry. And I think you'll have a large part in waking people up. You can see by the number of people viewing your daily YouTubes. So kudos to you, Chris, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know if it was any wild thing. It was just I was sitting on Wall Street and I'd been hearing 2 + 2 = 5 for the first 30 years of my life. And then finally, started reading Austrian economics. I'm like, oh, equals 4. This makes a lot more sense. And that's where all this really started. Although, Andy, I have so I got you to ask me a question. I answered it. Then you answered on top of my answer. Now I'm going to refire a question based on your re-answer here, going at a high level today. So this is what we do in.
Okay. Right on.
You said markets don't work like that. I found that interesting. And you also mentioned about, people getting ticked off when the price gets smashed. Now, I
Yes.
would say if I had to, well, there's a lot of things that have gone well this year, but one thing that I'm actually pretty darn proud of is I've finally gotten myself to the point where, I hope this comes across the right way. I honestly don't care. If the price goes up, great. Good things are going to happen then. If the price goes down, it's like the Black Friday sale. I've used that line a couple times this week where people are like, darn, silver's down. I'm like, well, were you that upset when your new suit was on sale? And and the way I see those two statements connecting with that, along with maybe markets don't, you said markets don't work like that. Maybe markets do work like what we're seeing. We can go back and study the Roman Empire, and maybe that would be a fun show one night. We could watch a documentary, and it's incredible. The last time I did this, it's like, wow, that guy's the Obama of the Romans. Hey, there's the Dick Cheney. There's these roles and characters that repeat, and we know what the Romans did devaluing the coins. We've seen these scams for decades. Probably, we didn't have the internet back in the 50s or 60s. God only knows what these guys were doing. And I say that in the sense that as I think about these things more, maybe the markets have always been this rigged. In fact, they probably have. And to me, what I find I can control is my own mindset. And I find where people get themselves into trouble, where I've gotten myself into trouble, is when I put on a position based on what I want to happen. Yet if you can shift that a little bit just based on, all right, what do I see happening in the world? How can I prepare for that? It's just like a little rearrangement of the cause and effect. But I think that can make a big difference. At least it has for me. And perhaps not a question, but if you have any thoughts on that one.
Yeah, long time. So I've been playing fantasy football since 1984, maybe a little later than that, 1987. I was 17 years old when I started playing fantasy football. And I was actually the commissioner of my fantasy football league for many, many years. And I used to, every Monday morning or Tuesday morning after the Monday night game, I would go through the USA Today, the physical paper. For those of you youngsters out there who know what a newspaper is, I would go through the newspaper and calculate the statistics by hand and type out on a word processor a newsletter of sorts that was probably somewhat crazy in the things that I would say in that newsletter specifically, and send it out by mail to everyone. And so maybe in answer to your question, now there's 5,000 fantasy football sites and information at the tip of our fingertips whenever we want it, on our phone, on our computer, whatever. And so maybe you're right. Maybe the markets have been rigged all along, and it just took too much digging and not enough information to be able to see it. And now with computers and the ability to research, you used to have to know the Dewey Decimal System when I went to junior high school and high school, and you'd go into the library and find the 6-digit number on the back of the book and find it inside of a list of cards, and then go find your book. Everything was different then, and it was very much analog, and researching and gathering information wasn't easy. And maybe now that information is there for those of us who look closely enough, like the gentleman you had on last night. And so maybe you're right, Chris. Maybe markets have always been this way. But what the electronic age has done is enabled people who want to do the work, like yourself and the gentleman you had on last night, to see the truth. The question goes back, or the problem goes back to what we were saying earlier. The public is being inundated so much with misinformation that even presented with the truth, it's often poo-pooed as conspiracy theory, as tinfoil hat wearing. I fought that stigma forever, talking about J.P. Morgan manipulating the markets. And lo and behold, we know how that turned out. So,
Conspiracy theory, bro.
Yeah, well, exactly. How many fines have they settled this year alone? 3 or 4 big ones? I think that the bottom line is simply, you're right. And maybe the only way to win is to be on the same side as the people pulling the strings. And so you don't just manipulate a market for shits and giggles. You manipulate a market for a reason. And the precious metals market used to be manipulated due to a term called Gibson's paradox, which was the inverse relationship between real interest rates and gold. And maybe to an extent that still is what they're doing, to create an illusion of wealth through low interest rates. When people feel wealthy in their 401k and their home prices, they don't grab pitchforks and flamethrowers and go out into the street. But now you could argue that you can see what the big money is doing. They're holding down the price to create less demand and to pull it all off the exchange to gather the physical metal before the shit hits the fan. That is what I have been seeing since 2017, when the central banks, starting with the Bundesbank, made a declaration, we want our metal home before 2020. And then the Bank of Hungary and the Bank of Poland and the Dutch National Bank, and it went on and on and on. And so then you see big money doing the same thing on the COMEX in a very clandestine manner. You have to see through the noise. The noise is about the price and about Bitcoin and about all this crap and about a vaccine and all of this stuff, which is noise. You and I were talking about the reasons to do this long before there was a COVID. And I just simply think that you have to take a step back and not be emotional and not be affected by the daily price swings and actually look at it as a subsidy, because in the end, it continues to march higher and will do so, I think, predictably based upon the actions of the most sophisticated traders on the planet, the central banks and the big money, who is showing you what they're doing if you look hard enough on COMEX. The same thing the central banks are doing, getting the metal out of harm's way, period. There is no reason to go to such lengths if not for them fearing what is coming. And what will come, I think, would be a force majeure type of situation. One of the most interesting things your guest said was how in their own letter, the CME decreased the eligible metal that they were quoting by 50%. In other words, they're saying, well, we may have half of what we say we do. But we've always known it's been rehypothecated there. But the bottom line is because they have been facing so many people pulling, or so many redemption notices, I don't know how many people it is, but because they've seen so much metal come off the exchange, they're panicking. Not only do they triple their list of approved refineries to every mom and pop company that makes a bar, but you can see now they're saying, well, we reserve the right to say that half of what we say that is eligible may not actually be eligible. And that's where you get into, and that's when you get into looking at why are they doing this? Well, when you see these types of actions, let's quickly, let's triple our approved bar list to people, half of them being in China. You got these Chinese refineries making bars. They're the ones who sold tungsten bars supposedly, but now they're approved CME refineries. So anyways, the bottom line is simply this. You can see by their actions, pulling it off of the Bank of England and the New York Fed, tripling the approved bar list, seeing these big traders pull it off the exchange. These are all foreshadowing events of what's coming, at least in their mind what's coming, because there's no other justification to explain what they're doing. And it all boils back down to price is meaningless right now. It is a tool of misdirection. Trust your gut. Trust Chris Marcus. He's the most silver-hearted person I've ever met in my life. You are. I mean, everything we ever talk about, by and large, other than some social things, is silver. You're as genuine as it gets. That's why I associate so proudly with you. You're not full of shit. You're real. And I think that what you're helping everyone see is the truth. And you can see that no more vehemently than that interview last night that everyone needs to listen to, and to Andrew Maguire interviews that everyone needs to listen to. You can see what the big money is doing. They're always 2 steps ahead of the rest of us. And they are positioning themselves ahead of the rest of us and doing so in a manner that you have to be Inspector Clouseau to see it. And that's why the guests that you have on this show,
Wow.
that are,
Pink Panther reference. All right.
Well, that's why the guests on your show that are lifting up the rocks and seeing what's underneath it and showing us all is so important. I don't say that to get on your good side, Chris. I say that because there are very few people that I listen to every night. And if you want to stay abreast in this industry, you need to spend a few hours a night, every day, trying to stay relevant. And the people that you have on your show are the best in the industry, bar none. And I learned more from those people than just about anything. I listened to that interview twice last night. And it was a long one because I think it's really important. It's telling you misdirection. It's the handoff where everyone on the line moves left, but that one little small running back who sneaks out to the right flat, wide open, and everyone on the field, 23 players, what is it, 21 players, there's 11 aside, right? So 21 of 22 players are all on the left side of the field, but that one guy over there on the right, wide open. That's what they are doing. They are misdirecting everyone to one side of the field so they can scoop up the physicals when everyone is misdirected into the play fake. And I think that's what's happening. And you see that when you listen to people like Andrew who say it's all disappearing. And when you listen to your guest last night who show articulately, he's saying, prove me wrong. And I really thought hard about it and can't figure out how he is wrong. It basically says that they're panicking that if they don't, in a very secretive way, get their metal off the exchange out of harm's way now, based upon the verbiage that came out this year from the CME about decreased eligible numbers and by tripling of eligible refineries, these are moves that are foreshadowing trouble. And the big money is always ahead of the trouble. And that's what they're doing. And they don't want to panic people by being forthright and open about it. So they're doing it on these shadow contracts, buy it and take delivery the next day, and it does not show up unless you really dig. These are the moves that people should be focusing on, not the price. That's the bottom line. And I know it's been a very roundabout way to get here, but that's what I really want to say to people. Stop worrying about the price. The fundamentals are so incredibly strong that the price will work itself out. And just realize that the people who are pulling the strings are very sophisticated. And they have the benefit of the information, the computer programs, the money, and everything else that would enable them to be able to pull this off. And for the rest of us who can see what's happening, the only way to win is to join them. And it's to continue to buy on the dips. Don't chase the rallies. Do what they're doing, not what they're saying, and turn off the noise as it pertains to the price and to Bitcoin and to a vaccine and everything else that people are telling you is affecting the price. It has nothing to do with any of that. And in the end, I think people will be very glad that they trusted their gut and listened to a guy like you.
Yeah, well, plus I have a new strategy. I was so giddy because Pink Panther was a part of my early childhood. So I had to Google Inspector Clouseau. One of the clips that pops up, Inspector Clouseau examines the crime scene. So after we're done here, I'll watch that and think, how can I apply what Inspector Clouseau would do to investigate the silver crime scene? Maybe Cato will show up later and we'll have some fun with that one. Although, Andy, last question before we let you run this week. You mentioned something earlier about the U.S. Mint running out of product. Did I catch that right? And could you elaborate on the specifics so we make sure people are clear on what you were getting at there?
Well, I spoke with one of my wholesalers today, and he passingly said to me, I hear that the U.S. Mint is out right now. Now, that's the first I've heard of this. I have not heard this. And we are one of only 27 authorized U.S. Mint resellers. I haven't heard this yet. Now, my wholesaler did say that they're just out of supply, out of product. So I don't want to be feet to the fire on this one, but I will tell you from a very high source, one that I trust with my life, told me they're out of Silver Eagles right now. So whatever that means, take it with a grain of salt. But I think it's emblematic of the fact that the demand for physical is completely detached from what the price is doing on its downslope. It's completely detached from it. And so if it really is true that the U.S. Mint is out of Silver Eagles, I'm sure we'll hear that here very soon. But one of the companies that I buy a very good amount of product from, that was his comment to me, that the Mint is out of Silver Eagles right now. So I guess more information will come to light here in the next several days. We'll know for sure. But suffice it to say, I think that is to be believed from the source I heard it from.
Yeah, well, I feel like Inspector Clouseau would want me to keep an eye on that one. So if you hear more, please keep me posted, and I'll pass it along to our audience. And by the way, if you're sitting there, how will I know when that comes out? That's a great reason to hit the subscription button as well as the notification bell, so you can stay miles, hundreds of miles ahead of Wall Street, thousands of miles, I don't know, somewhere far ahead. And of course, Andy, I know if people actually want to take delivery of physical gold and silver before the goon squads get it all, Arcadia at Miles Franklin, and we got a special this week. How's that looking?
Yeah, so I got a special for your listeners that I think is the best one I've probably ever offered you guys.
Is it hot?
I've gone deep into it's hot, and in fact, I don't think you could even compare it with anyone else in the industry. I don't think you can price shop this one. Anybody. I've gone deep into my vault, and in that vault, I've had stuff that I have been holding personally that I am going to relinquish. And
collector's
have, well, they are, and it's been stuff that I've been holding in my inventory for the right time. I have, I don't know how many ounces, about 4,000 ounces, not a ton, but about 4,000 ounces of the Canadian limited edition wildlife and birds of prey and predator series silver coins. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about these for a moment. Indulge me. In 2000, I believe it was 2010, the Canadian Mint came out with the first Call of the Wild series, and it was in gold and then in silver. They made I think it was a 2010 gold Howling Wolf. The gold Call of the Wild series by the Canadian Mint is the only 5.9 fine gold products by and large in the world. Royal Canadian Mint makes the most pure items, period. They make the only 4.9 fine silver coins, well, them and the Perth Mint, and they do make the only 5.9 pure gold bullion coins, period. And I was always intrigued by the way the Canadian Mint did this, different than all the other mints, in that the Canadian Mint would strictly limit the mintage. Now, as it pertains to each and every one of these items that I have, like I have some great horned owl, some peregrine falcon, I think I have the moose from 2014, the cougar, I think from 15 or 16. They're all in sealed boxes and tubes of 25. I think I have one box of the 1.5 ounce grizzly bear. Anyways, all of these items, when they're made, they make 1 million of them, and that's it. Then they break the mold. Now, that sounds like a lot of coins, but, you know, the U.S. and Canadian Mint will make north of, 50 million coins a year in Maple Leaf and Eagles, respectively, way more than that in Eagles. But these 1 million coins are limited mintage. They all have animal likeness or the Predator series or the Birds of Prey series. They're all animals or birds that you would find in the Canadian wildlife in the wilderness. And anyways, these coins have acted like numismatic coins for the past decade. And I've never seen a bullion series ever trade at the kind of premiums that these coins do. And so I welcome people to try and find them less expensive in stock. I don't think you will. So, bottom line. I
dispute that.
Yes.
Because I'm going to buy 2 of them myself, and keeping in the theme of a Silver December to remember, anyone who tags Miles Franklin and Arcadia Economics, as well as the link to this YouTube interview, will be entered for this week's drawing. Andy, I'm sorry I can't help it. The silver just, I can't. I love giving it away. I mean, especially if we're talking about silver as money. I know it's undervalued and we're hoarders by nature, but we're going to have fun giving it away. So that would be a little cheaper, but I'm only throwing in 2 of those. So if you want to stack up, you can find out more about that at arcadia@milesfranklin.com. And
yeah, I still owe you a couple coins from last week's giveaway. You got to get me that info so I can get your listeners who did tweet that out their proper due. But these are at $3.59 an ounce over the price of silver. And while they last, I don't have much more than 3,500 or 4,000 coins. And to me, truthfully, they are the best 1 ounce silver coins that you can buy, hands down, not even close, based upon the fact that you're getting them in line with everything else price-wise, but you're getting a free call, if you will, on numismatic premium. Which is something that I think you could very easily see with these coins, where you'll see premiums go to the moon. They have a huge collectible demand to them. And if it doesn't happen, if you don't see the premiums go to the moon, so what? You're buying them on par with everything else. You have the potential to see these premiums go up. If you're a collector of coins, these are the best ones to buy. They are as rare as hen's teeth these days. So anyways, that is what I have, and they will be to your listeners and your listeners only. So let me know if you get those names, and we'll get those 2 coins out to those people who tweet this information out. And again, thanks for the opportunity, Chris. I always enjoy our time together.
Well, I appreciate that. Great to catch up with you this week. We'll wrap up for now because I'm want to get back to designing my Ben Bernanke bobblehead doll that shoots printed cash all over your desk. I thought my Magnus Opum was going to be the silver chopper Ben, which I do have an artist working on now, and she's in communication with some silver makers, so good news there. But it just seems like such a great combo pack if you can get the silver version and the bobblehead doll that spits cash. So with that said, we'll wrap up for there this week, Andy. But thank you again. And folks, if you like silver and think that's going up, then I really think, I'm not telling you to buy it, but I think you'd want to take a look at Dolly Varden Silver, find out more about what they're doing. And you don't even have to go anywhere because it is coming your way now.